If we say that service is taking action to create value for someone you care about, then what do you call action that is not valued by the person you care about? It could be a colleague, it could be a customer, it could even be for self-service. What do we call that action? Action that is not valued. That's called waste.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Engati CX. We have somebody really special today. So who is it, you ask? We have the pleasure of welcoming Ron Kaufman to our interview series. But let's begin with just a quick introduction of what Engati is. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform available across 14 channels, with 30,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, Ron. Ron is the author of the New York Times bestseller Uplifting Service and 14 other books on service, business, and inspiration. Ron has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and USA Today. In 2018, Global Gurus rated Ron the #1 customer service guru in the world. Ron works with a successful clientele of government agencies and multinational corporations, including Singapore Airlines, Xerox, Nokia, Siemens, Marina Bay Sands, and Changi Airport. He delivers powerful business insights and global best practices, enabling organizations to gain a sustainable advantage through service. But before we dive into all that awesomeness with Ron himself, here's a quick announcement. We have something really special for all of you, as always. So stick till the end of the interview and you will find out what it is. Ron, are you ready to jump in?
I have been looking forward to this interview for weeks. Thanks so much for the invitation. Let's dive in.
Really appreciate that, Ron. So the first question to you is, how can companies build an uplifting service culture in spite of all the pandemic that's going around?
Great question. Really appropriate. If it's okay with you, I'd like to use a share screen to be able to answer that question. Can I go there?
Of course.
All right. You should now be looking at a very nice blue infinity loop. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So when we talk about service is a term that all of us are familiar with, like we grew up with it, but none of us necessarily got a good education in what service really is or what it means, unless perhaps you studied hospitality or tourism. But otherwise, it comes with a real legacy of, a service job is a low-level job. That comes out of that whole background, like, the customer is king. So if you're the service provider, you must be the slave. And there's, there's some history to why it is that way, but that's not what we mean today. When we say I'm in financial services, I'm in legal services, I'm in medical services, obviously these are pretty esteemed levels of participation in society. So what is service? Well, service is taking action. And that can be online, that can be over the phone, that can be face-to-face, that can be for a B2B client, it could be for a B2C client, it could be for a colleague. The service is taking action to create value. And who is the value for? Well, it's for someone you care about. Now, I want you to notice what we've just done here is we've reframed service so that it's not considered the subservient, low-level service provider. We've just reinvented it to say, no. Service, the person who gives service, is the creator of value. Well, now that's a very different repositioning. And it's why I named my New York Times bestselling book, Uplifting Service, because we want to improve the service that goes to the customer. We want to feel better as a service provider, but we also want to uplift the whole idea of being in service to one another. Let's give some more dignity to the role of service in life. So here we are so far. Service is taking action to create value. How do you know it's valuable? Well, it contributes to somebody else. It takes care of them in some way. It addresses something that they would be concerned about. So what is care? Well, care is concern for the future. For example, if you have children, you say, I care about my kids. What do you mean? You care about their future. I care about my house. You mean maintenance and it being fine not only today, but into the future. I care about my job. You're not just thinking about today, you're thinking about your career or the future. So care is concern for what? What's at the heart of both service and care? And the answer to that is well-being. Something is valuable to someone if it takes care of their well-being. Something you care about the future of is because you care about its well-being. Now, let's look at these a little bit more closely. From a definition standpoint, we could now say service is care in action. And from a cultural standpoint, our business has developed an entire architecture to help organizations build, if you will, a house of service, a culture of service. So when people come to work, they're providing great service to each other within the organization, but also great service to their clients, their customers, their patients, their members, their visitors, their guests, whatever it may be outside the organization. What about on the care side? Well, here's the house of service. Here's the model that we've built. The foundation is all of the education that was not provided to people in school about how you create more value, really. And by the way, that curriculum that we've invented has now been ranked the #1 customer service development program in the world. What is in that roof of the house? What kind of behavior do the leaders need to demonstrate in order to provide direction and protection? And then finally, what's in the middle there? What are those 12 building blocks? Now, anybody who's listening to this who wants to know more about it, you can just go to upliftingservice.com and you'll find out a whole lot about the whole architecture that we've built. On the care side, we have what we call the garden of care. And, honestly, this is just the beginning. We are just starting right now to build out all of the courseware associated with this garden of care, and you'll be seeing a lot more of that coming in the months and the years ahead. So there you go. Hopefully answering your question, what is service in this time? People have been saying how do I make more money with my service? Or how do I get more net promoter score with my service? Or how do I get more clients with my service? But now we should be saying, how do I take better care with my service, because those two are intimately linked with each other.
That's fantastic. I should say, Ron, I am really impressed the way you are connecting these dots to make the bigger picture. I mean, that's fantastic. I really love what you did there. My second question to you is one among the questions that you just asked. Can excellent customer service actually result in an increase in productivity?
Yeah, this is a great question. If we say that service is taking action to create value for someone you care about, then what do you call action that is not valued by the person you care about? It could be a colleague, it could be a customer, it could even be for self-service. What do we call that action? Action that is not valued. That's called waste.
Right.
Now, in manufacturing, it's very clear. Anything that doesn't produce a better outcome, a better final product, it's called waste. There's waste of time, there's waste of resources, there's waste with rework. But in the service world, we could also say, hey, wait a minute now. Anything that we're doing that isn't actually valued by the other party that we're doing it for, that's waste. So how can we improve customer experience, provide excellent customer service, and at the same time increase productivity? Well, then the answer is not found like in the manufacturing world, follow the process, Six Sigma, always meet the service level agreement, the standards. No. In the service world, that makes sense in the manufacturing world. In the service world, you've got to be more curious about what is it that the person you're serving wants, needs, hopes for, is afraid of, so that you understand what they value, and then you can figure out what action to take. So the actions you're taking are creating value for the circumstances and situations of the person you're serving. Anything other than that is waste.
Right.
So you can actually end up increasing productivity, which means reducing cost, which means being more efficient, which means being more effective with less resources, because you're no longer just making everybody go through the same process and thinking that that's better service. No. Service is taking action to create value for the person you care about. And so it doesn't begin with the action you think you should take. It begins with how much curiosity you bring to understanding and appreciating the world of that person you're in service to.
Right. So what you're trying to tell over here, Ron, is that effective service is when it's very much tailored to the person that's directed towards.
That's right. That's right. And fortunately, we live in a world today with AI and with machine learning. And, there's a lot that can go on in that space.
That's correct. It's great that you mentioned AI and machine learning, because the next question is about that is, what impact does AI and conversational automation have on customer service and experience?
Yeah. Well, we're seeing it all the time. For example, this is my mobile phone right here. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
And when I go onto this phone and I'm dictating text and I'm using terms that are definitely not in the standard dictionary, but they make sense to me. Well, each time that voice dictation, that online capability to take my voice and turn it into words, each time it gets it wrong, and I go in and I correct it, the next time it gets it right. How did that happen? Oh, it's learning all the time.
Right.
Even down to when I talk to Siri, for example, on my Apple iPhone, and I can choose which tone of voice do I want for Siri. Do I want a female voice? Do I want a male voice? Do I want this accent? Do I want that accent? And so what's happening here? High levels of customization, high levels of personalization, which is making my experience as the customer better and better and better and better and better. And all of that's being delivered by AI and machine learning, algorithms that are helping the service provider, the company, the product, the software, provide a better experience for each and every individual customer. We couldn't do that before. That's why we were always leaning in the direction of standardization and everybody gets the same thing. And as long as we don't deviate from that, we think we're giving good service. No. In today's world, the customer wants to be served the way they want to be served.
Right. Absolutely. And I think one major aspect of what you had spoken over here is humanizing the entire journey, right? I mean, it shouldn't come across that, okay, a Terminator is talking to you, maybe a robot is talking. It has to be, and that's why they introduce the accents, the female voices, the male, because that humanizes the whole channel. And I think that's important too for as a business.
Yeah. And we're going to see so much more of that. Now, people say, I'm afraid all the jobs are going to disappear. Well, anything that can be replaced, let's say by a brilliantly well-designed avatar that understands your preferences, your personality, your learning pattern, and you know what? The biometric device that you're wearing may actually already let that other device know what's your mood like right now, what time of day is it, all of that stuff is going to come. So then it raises the question, what is the role of the human service provider in a world where it's so much more digitally enabled for the system to be able to provide a great service experience? And that's a really good question for us to explore.
Right. That's perfectly said. Ron, it's no secret that you have worked with various multinationals and government organizations. So can you give us some insights on the pain points that organizations go through in adopting digital transformative tech as such?
Right. Great question. And, that's a classic example of what I was just pointing to, where the company may say, okay, let's get everybody to go self-service on the web. Or, okay, let's get everybody to download the app and we'll start serving them that way. Right. But then they find, and by the way, the people in the company that are in the technology department, they understand it. And the people who are doing all the code work, they understand it. And the marketing department, they have big dreams about how we're going to push out digital, marketing. And then operations is, we're going to be so much more efficient because now it's all going to be online. And then the customer hates it or the customer doesn't use it. And so, what's going on there? And what's going on there is that one of the most important roles for real human beings to be playing right now is to help the generations that exist today. And I'm not talking about the Zoomers. I'm not talking about the Gen Z, because they've grown up digital. They don't have a problem downloading a new app and figuring it out just by looking at it. But the large percentage of the population are what we could call digital immigrants. We're the people who actually grew up in the analog era when their dial phone went or when you said, hey, grab a pen. And that actually made sense. It doesn't make sense to a young person to say, grab a pen. You say, grab your phone. So we've got to help these people, customers, clients, migrate into the digital world. And, any migration is going to produce some anxiety. It's going to produce some unsettlement for a customer. So how do we get them over that? Well, that's called hand-holding. That's called personalized educational experience. That's called giving somebody a little pep talk, a little motivation. That's called empathy and compassion. Don't count on an avatar to do that.
Right.
That's the role for a human service provider. And too many companies are not pouring the effort in to do that because, by the way, the moment you get somebody successfully migrated, then you don't have to do that for them again. And if you do it really well, they will end up teaching it to their friends. They will end up explaining to their own community of other people like them. So that's a really important thing for banks, for so many different organizations, that it's a big lesson. It's a big pain point because you design this beautiful thing, but then you're not helping people in the transition to get over into the new world.
Right.
Clear?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, there's one other point in answer to your question. Your question was, what are the pain points that organizations go through in adopting digital or transformational tech? And that is that the digital and transformational technology is designed by digital and technology capable human beings.
That's true.
And the history that field comes out of is a history of people who write code. It's a history of people who are developers. And if you go far enough back in that history, who they were designing for were called users, not humans, users. And if you go far enough back, it's users who are sitting at dumb terminals. And so you still have that sort of legacy being carried forward. And I give you an example. If you enter something into a website and you get it wrong, what message do you get back? I remember when Microsoft, if you got your password wrong, it said user error. We received requests. It's like going stupid customer, dummy. Whoa. Meanwhile, over on the Google side or on the YouTube side or on the WeTransfer side, it was saying, oops, we're sorry. Let's try again.
Right.
Now, wait a minute. It was the exact same situation. But whoever wrote that copy on that screen was either thinking like a developer, dumb user didn't do the thing right, let's go spank them, or was thinking like an experienced designer, and let's make this an emotionally enjoyable experience to go through.
Right. I think you have pointed two of the biggest pain points that people always pinpoint. One is, and surprisingly, we are in this very interesting part of time wherein we are kind of shifting slowly from the analog to the digital world also. And still a lot of companies are a little skeptical towards going to that side of the world. And this is when, we actually have to emphasize on making it more, providing more empathy and teaching them towards the other side. That is wonderful that you pinpointed.
That's right. And I would say, especially in the chatbot world where you guys work, because that when a chatbot first comes up, it doesn't know every question and it doesn't know every answer.
Right.
So then, for example, if somebody clicks on, no, I was not satisfied with the response the chatbot gave me, what a wonderful moment to say, thank you. Your response will help us improve your experience the next time.
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, there's some advice for you as a chatbot development company.
That's right. We really appreciate that. Ron, I think this was very interesting and, so many great insights that you have shared over here. Concluding this, are there any other thoughts or sound bites you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, you mentioned that there was hesitation to go into the digital world, but let's be honest, the whole current global circumstance, the crisis that we're all facing has forced a lot of the world into a much more digital world, and that's not going to go away when things settle again.
Yes.
But I want to use your question as a way of inviting every single person listening to this to consider something about the word responsibility, okay? And I want to explain 3 different levels of responsibility. One of them is the one that we would call taking personal responsibility.
Mhm.
In our company, we call it TPR. And it means that you're not blaming somebody else. You're not moping around feeling ashamed of bad performance. You're not making excuses for why something didn't happen. You're stepping up and saying, okay, here's the situation. What can I do? How can I take personal responsibility? And that's great. That's one level. There's another level, which is what I call creating shared responsibility, where you're the one who says, hey, let's gather as a team and work on this. You're the one who's reaching out with your community and saying, let's get on a Zoom call together and listen to each other and take good care of each other. You're the one, as easy as in a family, who doesn't just say, well, I'm going to reach out to my mother, but you might say, let me be the one that brings together the siblings, the aunties, the uncles, the grandparents, get everybody on the call together, which is not going to happen by itself.
Right.
And it's not going to happen just by taking personal responsibility. You've got to be a little more seductive then. You've got to be a little more emotionally persuasive so that you create a sense of shared responsibility. Interesting. That's another level. Mm-hmm. But the third and the final level is what I would call generative historic responsibility. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't just look at the situation. You don't just look at your community. You look at the era in which we are alive and say, boy, the way things are got this way because of the way things were. And we're drifting along in life towards what it looks like things are going to become, unless someone intervenes. Unless we choose not just to drift, but to design. Unless we say, as human beings, we're not just like dogs who 1,000 years ago were dogs. And in 1,000 years, they're still going to be dogs. Yeah. We're not just like dolphins that 1,000 years ago were dolphins, and 1,000 years from now, they'll still be dolphins. We're humans. And we can, with our language, actually intervene and engage in this historic drift that we live in and help make shift happen. And that's what I call generative, like you're bringing about the future, generative historic responsibility. And I think every single person listening to this or every other person alive today should recognize we have more ability today, especially with our digital technologies that allow us to scale to the world or scale in terms of our impact to make more of an impact, not only in the moment, but towards the future than any generation that's ever lived before us. It's a very good time to be alive.
Wow, that was amazing right there. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Ron Kaufman himself. Thank you so much, Ron, for giving your insights. It was so valuable, and I'm very sure that the audience is going to enjoy this interview.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to have been with you. I've had a great big hello up here on the screen, and just before we leave, I'd like to change that quickly. See how long? Yeah, and I'd like to say goodbye. And thank you very much, everybody, for taking time to listen in. Thank you very much, Rahul, for being a great interviewer.
That was my pleasure. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, if you've stuck around for this long, we're so excited to announce that our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, is out and available. So check that out. It's in the description, available totally for free. And we will be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned and we'll see you around for the next one.